The labeled release experiment was a simple adaptation of an experiment that's used every day in thousands of cities around the world to test the drinking water to see if it's safe.
About a gram of Martian soil was dropped into the porous cup in the experimental chamber.
This is how the instrument worked. A tiny squirt of nutrient was injected onto the soil. Were anything alive or anything generating radioactive gas, the gas would come up and go into a chamber where the radioactivity could be detected.
Detection of carbon-14 in those gases will be evidence of a life process.
The first data came back directly from the lander, back to whatever it is, 30 million miles back to Earth. And I was at a line printer in the sort of the basement, and I watched the printout of the raw data. So I was maybe about 30 seconds ahead of everybody else. I knew a little bit earlier.
Each measurement shows a larger growth than in the preceding interval. This curve provides evidence of the presence of life.
So right then, we could have gone home. We discovered life on Mars, we confirmed it, hooray. As a matter of fact, I bought a bottle of champagne, I still have the cork.
And then the adults began to entertain doubts, including my father, who told me he wanted to be very cautious and not make a mistake. But I'm not a cautious person.
And people are getting over a little bit of the excitement.
NASA told me when I went up to the first press conference, don't you say that you discovered life on Mars. I said, don't worry, I'm not going to say that anyway. But while I was standing up there, the chief engineer of the project hit me in the ribs with his elbow and he says, God damn it, Gil, tell them you discovered life. But I didn't.
Later in the year, a second Viking lander descended successfully on the plain of Utopia, about 5,000 miles away from the first lander.
We ran a set of experiments on landing site 2 and got essentially the same results.
The exponential, ever-increasing curve. Life is again detected.
NASA discluded those findings. We have run the LR experiment on Earth more than 4,000 times. We've run it in all kinds of environments, high up on mountains, in the Antarctic. Never once has it given us a false positive or a false negative. So that's extraordinary to be able to say that for any experiment.
Scientists in a number of laboratories hunted for reactions that would duplicate the results of the Martian experiment.
All we can really say for sure is that we have run across some very interesting chemistry, a kind of chemistry that we do not see in surface samples from the Earth or surface samples from the Moon, and that's about where we are at the moment.
And they were telling everybody that the results were either negative or that it was ambiguous, but I never had any doubt, or at least that's what I claim now. I was a believer from the first minute at the line printer, and I still am.
Dr. Levin, why, when you analyzed the soil samples from the Viking probes 20 years ago, why wasn't this heralded as life discovered on Mars then, based on what you found?
Well, there was another experiment aboard Viking, and in the soil samples that we found a sharp response indicating life, they found no organic matter.
So if there's no organic matter on Mars, there can't be life, because life is organic. They didn't for a moment consider that the MIT experiment looking for organic matter could be wrong, and that the biospherics experiment could be right.
Is there life on Mars? If there is, it will have to be the kind that could survive on a platform 20 miles up from Earth, where the atmosphere resembles that of Mars.
The Bible tells us there's no life anyplace but Earth. So I would like to level that playing field. And I would like to make what might seem to some a startling statement. It would be a miracle if there were no life on Mars.
It always happens in the history of science that as your perspective broadens. You learn more about what you left at home, as well as what you went out to seek.
I would just like to end asking for a show of hands of how many believe there is life on Mars. My God. Wonderful, wonderful.